Democracies fell, but we rose, done by Paul Driscoll. These are my poems and others chosen. This, therefore, is a series of poems, 9 of which are written by me, and the other 3 are my favourite passages, speeches or poems that I have chosen to help tell the narrative and journey of the work I'm trying to convey. The overarching story of the work postulates the thought of why democracies are faltering. Because as democracies falter and more nations drift towards dictatorship and autocracy, this work explores the roots of tyranny, how it emerges, how it spreads, and what allows it to take hold. Yet it also carries a message of hope, that ordinary people can resist, rebuild and reshape society. These poems all look at how we can strengthen both ourselves and our communities, imagining a better, more humane way of living. It begins with considering the root causes of rising autocracy and the more extreme political governments as people become more and more frustrated by its government and its inability to stop Western decline. The poems are all time-stamped to a particular poem you might enjoy, but I do encourage you, try to listen to them in order and enjoy the whole journey and voyage of experience as a whole. So sit back and enjoy. Please consider detailing your thoughts and opinions. I would genuinely love to hear your views. Act 1. The Reasons. Poems 1, 2 and 3 detail the reasons. This being the rise of inequality as a small cabal of rich billionaires become separate from government control or society, and these modern robber barons are destroying our very core of society. Then it goes to the mistreatment of immigrants, anger of people frustrated at their dwindling lot in life, and they turn their anger towards immigrants, refugees and the migrant poor, instead of the very rich who exploit those people and in fact are the real cause of rising inequality and dwindling of wealth of the poor and individual. Finally, the reason is the moral breakdown and weakness of Western society, so expertly called out by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Okay, poem 1, Inequality by Paul Driscoll. Before I begin the poem, let me just give a short explanation. The greatest driver of today's unrest is a widening gulf between ordinary people and a tiny elite accumulating unimaginable wealth, while most feel poorer and more precarious. A small cabal of billionaires and trillionaires grows ever richer and remains largely unchecked by both society or governments. It's a dynamic that is clearly corrosive to any healthy society and one of the main causes. Inequality by Paul Driscoll.
Inequality is the root of social evil. No flourish, no disguise, just truth. It grows in silence, in systems built to divide, in shadows cast by wealth and pride. No society can surely be flourishing and happy, of which the far greater part of the members are poor and miserable. So we ask, what kind of happiness is built on misery? What kind of progress leaves most behind? The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. But who decides what's unequal? Who draws the lines? And who gets erased? A nation will not survive morally or economically when so few have so much and so many have so little. There's class warfare, alright, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning. The economic game is rigged. Today, the top 1/10 of 1% own nearly as much wealth as the bottom 90%. America is the wealthiest nation on earth, but its people are mainly poor. The most destructive untruth is that it is very easy for any American to make money. A dream sold in neon, but have served all these centuries as looking glasses, possessing the magic and delicious power of reflecting the figure of man at twice its natural size. You know it's never 50-50 in a marriage. It's always 70-30 or 60-40. Even love carries imbalance. Even mirrors distort. Inequality hardens society into a class system. Inequality divides us from one another. Inequality undermines democracy. And when democracy cracks, the silence grows louder. As long as poverty, injustice, and gross inequality persist in our world, none of us can truly rest. There can be no peace as long as there is grind and poverty, social injustice, inequality, oppression, environmental degradation. So we rise, we speak, we sing, we refuse to rest.
The Stranger's Case, written by William Shakespeare, as the character Sir Thomas More in the play Henry VIII that he co-wrote with Jonathan Fletcher. Background to the passage. On May the 1st, 1517, now referred to as the Evil May Day, riots broke out in London in response to an influx of immigrant workers. 80 years later, a play written that includes some of these events. The play, called Sir Thomas More, wasn't published or performed at the time, quite possibly because it was censored. The speech from which the play is delivered to the rampaging crowd by Thomas More, who was Sheriff for London at the time. And Thomas More asks the rioters to imagine themselves in the shoes of the immigrants they're attacking. The manuscript of today is the original version of that speech and was very likely written by William Shakespeare. And it's a passage that I think holds as true today as it did back then when it was written. Okay, on to the poem itself.
Grant them removed, and grant that this your noise hath tread down all the majesty of England. Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, their babies at their backs and their poor luggage, plodding to the ports and coasts for transportation, and that you sit as kings in your desires. Authority quite silenced by your brawling, you in rough of your opinions clothed. What had you got? I'll tell you, you were taught how insolence and strong hands should prevail, how order should be quelled, and by this pattern not one of you should live an aged man for other ruffians, as their fancies wrought with self-same hands, self-reason and self-right would shark on you, and men like ravenous fishes feed on one another. You'll put down strangers, kill them, cut their throats, possess their houses, and lead the majesty of law in Liam to slip him like a hound. Alas, say now the king, as he is clement, if defender mourn, should so much come too short of your great trespasses, but to banish you, whither would you go? What country, by the nature of your error, should give you harbor? Go you to France or Flanders, to any German province, to Spain or Portugal, nay, anywhere that not adheres to England. Why? You must needs be strangers. Would you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper, that breaking out in hideous violence would not afford you when the bold on earth wet their detested knives against your throat, spurn you like dogs, and like as if that God owned not nor made not you, nor that the elements were not all appropriate to your comforts, but chartered unto them. What would you think to be thus used? This is the stranger's case, and this your mountainish inhumanity.
Okay, on to poem 3, and this is Splitting Through the Illusion by Paul Driscoll. Before we begin the poem, a short explanation. The West often assumes its worldview is the pinnacle of human progress. Yet Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Nobel Prize-winning author of Gulag Archipelago, offered a stark outsider critique in 1978. After surviving imprisonment and exile, he settled in America. So when he was invited to speak in Harvard in the year of 1978, many expected him to condemn only the Soviet regime and say how wonderful America and the Western world was. Instead, in A World Split Apart, his famous speech, he delivers a set of searing analysis of Western moral and spiritual decline. This poem that I've written is an inspiration from that speech. I mean, I encourage you to read his speech in full, but I like to think I've encapsulated a lot of what he said and merging in a lot of what I personally feel about the weakening of Western society. Splitting Through the Illusion by Paul Driscoll.
We built our towers high, lit the sky with neon pride. But truth slipped through our fingers, while comfort dulled our minds. We called it freedom, but forgot the soul. We chased the future and lost control. Truth is seldom sweet, it stings, it bites, it burns. But bitter truth is better than the silence we have learned. We balance power, we sign the deals, but the deeper split is what we fail to feel. A world split apart, not just east and west, but soul from body and courage from the chest. A world split apart, not just land and law, but man from meaning and wonder from all. We thought we were strong, but we are friable, powdered by comfort, cracked by denial. Civil courage fades, litigation grows. We fear the truth and feed the show. We measure all with Western eyes and call the rest behind. But ancient cultures hold the keys to wisdom intertwined. With every step we take, we strive. We miss the beauty wide. For in the dance of life we learn humility is pride. A world split apart, not just east and west, but soul from body and courage from the chest. A world split apart, not just land and law, but man from meaning and wonder from all. So open up your eyes and see the tapestry of life. Different
And that brings us on to Act 2, The Wisdom. These are poems 4 and 5. So before we can look into how to tackle rising tyranny, we must first look inward into ourselves and learn and understand the very whys of ourselves and society to learn how to live better within it. This therefore looks at wise quotes and philosophical religious teachings on how best to live, learn and grow. And this brings me on to poem 4, Pearls of Wisdom by Paul Driscoll. Explanation of the poem. Imagining a breakup between Europe and Western nations as America loses its moral self. But how do we resist tyranny and stay grounded in turbulent times? I've always loved short, sharp lines of wisdom, phrases that help us remember how to live well and see clearly. This poem weaves together some of my favourite quotes, lightly adapted to keep it in a memorable melodic form suitable for poetry. Brief mention of poem 5's quotation list just reveals how deliberately the poem is constructed as a conversation with inherited wisdom rather than a collection of borrowed lines. Many of the phrases reoccur like refrains, reflections on pressure, difficulty, understanding and growth. Ideas commonly associated with thinkers such as Socrates, Spinoza, Einstein, Tagore. Together they circle a shared concern. That meaning isn't found by avoiding struggle, but by engaging with it, examining life honestly and learning through action. Other lines widen that lens, drawing on writers like Ovid, Samuel Johnson, Dostoevsky, Alan Watts, Jason Campbell, to explore travel, change identity, and the tension between inner life and outward reality. A few phrases hover on the edge of quotation. There's biblical truths or long-standing proverbs about love and freedom, all reinforcing how deeply these ideas are embedded in cultural memory. This has come from my own personal journey, as over the years I have written down some of my favourite, most meaningful quotes, and I use that as inspiration for the poem. It was only after I made my choices that I began to realise how many of these I'd chosen had actually come from quotes I'd picked up off of a TV show of all things. It's one that I adore and I'd long forgotten. It's about a character, Dr. Tom, in the show Being Erica, where he gives Erica therapeutic dialogue and growth and experience in it. And I guess that resonated so much and worked so well with what I was trying to convey with this poem. I urge all to track down that wonderful TV show and try and watch it again, because it is really philosophical and genuinely not only entertaining, but a wonderful story about self-growth and self-learning of oneself. But overall, I wasn't going for direct citation. I was going for quotes that function as emotional landmarks, guiding the poem through curiosity, resistance, acceptance, and ultimately understanding. Pearls of Wisdom by Paul Driscoll.
I wanted help, and I'm giving you what you need. I'm giving you what you asked for. The truth will set you free. But chip away at what makes you you, and you become something else. Friendship begins when two people choose each other. But what happens when we outgrow the choice? When little by little our paths diverge, our needs change, and one day we wake up and realize we need to choose something different. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Pressure makes diamonds. The life which is unexamined is not worth living. We learn by doing, there's no other way. Do not weep, do not wax indignant, understand.
perfection, both in function and in form, but chip away at its integrity and it collapses. Our lives are like a house of cards. Remove one of those cards and the whole thing comes tumbling down. Labels are for cans, not people. I've chipped, I've cracked, I've fallen through, but every fall taught me how to rise, and every choice became a truth. Let your net always be cast, and in the pool which you least expect, there will be a fish. Sarcasm, the last refuge of modest people when the privacy of their soul is intrusively invaded. The use of traveling is to regulate imagination by reality. And instead of thinking how things may be, to see them as they are. They say love is friendship set on fire, and if you're lucky enough to find someone you can give yourself to, mind, body, and soul, you should hold on and hope like hell you don't get burned. I've walked through time to find myself, each regret a doorway, each memory a guide. And though the past can't be changed, the future is mine to ride. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Pressure makes diamonds. The life which is unexamined is not worth living. We learn by doing, there is no other way. Do not weep, do not wax indignant, understand. If life's journey be endless, where is its goal? The answer is it's everywhere. I've learned that closure isn't a door you walk through, it's a mirror you face. That forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the strength to let go of what you thought you needed. I've learned that pain is a teacher and time is a gift, that the hardest truths are the ones that set us free. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it. Move with it and join the dance. You cannot find peace by avoiding life. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. So I cast my net again into the pool I least expect, and I find myself in the ripples of choice, in the echoes of love, in the silence between regret. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Pressure makes diamonds. The life which is unexamined is not worth living. We learn by doing, there's no other way. Do not weep, do not wax indignant, understand. If life's journey be endless, where is its goal? The answer is it's
And that brings me on to poem 5, The Path to Enlightenment. The Light That We Forgot by Paul Driscoll. Preamble before beginning the poem. This song is inspired by Rabbi Weinberg's 48 Steps to Wisdom, which is for me a wonderful, practical, down-to-earth system for personal growth. It's based on the Mishnah Pirkei Avot, ethics of our fathers, but don't get bogged down with the religion and the Jewish aspect. I think this is a wonderful philosophical series that teaches how to cultivate clarity, purpose, emotional mastery, and the spiritual awareness in everyday life. It's often used during the Omar period as a daily self-development journey, and I urge all of you to perhaps listen to the whole of Rabbi Weinberg's teachings of the 48 Steps to Wisdom. They're all for free as audio recordings as well as written out. And I hope that you will consider engaging with them. Okay, this is poem 5 and it's the Path to Enlightenment.
Be aware of every moment, don't waste a single breath. Effort must be constant to live a life of depth. Listen with intention, don't take the words as truth. Hear the message underneath and question what's uncouth. Say it out loud, declare your creed. Let your soul and speech align. You'll know what you believe indeed when your words and heart entwine. Introduce yourself to yourself before the storm arrives. Know your name, your inner wealth before the crisis thrives. Feel the power of awe in nature's mighty hand. It humbles us with wonder and lifts us where we stand. Master fear, don't run away. Harness what it brings. Turn the tremble into strength and let your courage sing. True charisma isn't loud, it's humble, calm and clear. It's doing right without the crowd and not controlled by fear. Joy is pure energy, more potent than a snack. It fuels your dreams and destiny and keeps you on the track. Total concentration unlocks your hidden mind. Avoid the noise, embrace the task, and leave distractions behind. Honor the wise person, learn by watching close. Wisdom isn't just in books, it's in the ones who know. Work it through with friends, let feedback shape your view. Test your thoughts in honest light and find what's truly true. Grow through teaching others, makes your vision real. Ideas become reality when shared with heart and zeal. Think about it, pause and wait, don't rush or overthink. Find the balance in the gray and let your judgment link. Written words for living Torah as your guide. Not ancient but essential, it speaks from deep inside. Oral words for living are meant to be embraced. Wisdom lived and spoken, not shelved or left misplaced. Business sense for living, efficiency and grace. Apply the tools of commerce to build a soulful space. Marriage holds great power, intimacy runs deep. It's more than just desire, it's promises we keep. Physical pleasures holy when uplifted from the ground. Spiritual through the mundane, where sacred joy is found. Wake up and truly live, don't sleep through what's divine. Minimize the slumber and let your spirit shine. The art of conversation is fading in trial and let the scars reveal.
Right, then we get to Act 3, the rise of tyranny itself and how it is allowed to rise unchecked. This is poems 6, 7 and 8. But as tyranny rises in the West from Hungary to America of today, to looking in the past of Nazi Germany, Mussolini or Stalin of yesteryear, why consistently do the checks and balances of political classes, media, the business, rich and powerful, and people themselves never stand up? Never stop the dictatorship in its infancy when it's possible. And often, like business leaders like Elon Musk or Bezos of today, they actually embrace and encourage tyranny so long ago, much like equivalent people did in Nazi Germany and Mussolini back in the day. They do it always to the self-entitlement and greed, and always to the detriment of the people and the world. In these 3 poems, I consider how this happens, how the selfish silence of what doesn't affect us directly, and how through our own selfishness and greed create the hell of which we then find ourselves. Poem 6, Tyrant by Paul Driscoll. Before we begin the poem, what creates a tyrant? What kind of person seeks domination over others? Why do societies allow such figures to rise? This explores the psychology, the conditions that give birth to authoritarian power. This poem marks a shift from the direct and collage of quotations of the wisdom sections. This instead takes some borrowed lines, but making it instead entirely original, using allusions rather than the citation to carry its weight. The language draws on shared cultural memory of power and fear. The image of riding tigers through the night invokes ancient warnings that dangerous authority cannot be controlled once mounted, while boots stamping on the face and iron curtains descending immediately summon the shadow of George Orwell and the Cold War without ever naming them outright. Even the twisted echoes of Roosevelt's reassurance, fear itself turned into a weapon, reframes hope as a tool of oppression. What gives this poem its strength, I feel, is these reference never feel decorative. I've tried to absorb them into the rhythm of the poem, serving the argument rather than interrupting it. Around them and the rest of the imagery is unmistakably my own. Power as a fragile seat, cruelty disguised as welfare, revolutions hardening into stone. The results feel urgent, contemporary and personal. And that final turn where resistance begins not with force, but with people learning to dance, quietly reconnects the poem to an earlier, gentler philosophy, that freedom starts the moment fear loosens its grip. Okay, this is poem 6, The Tyrant by Paul Driscoll.
Tigers through the night, dictators fear the beast's bite. Power's thrown a fragile seed, built on silence, not defeat. Whoa, whoa. Boots that stamp upon the face, echoes lost in time and space. Freedom whispers through the wall, but tyrants never fear the fall. Democracy, a dream betrayed in shadows where the truth decayed. The people's voice, a muted cry, while propaganda paints the sky. The welfare of the crowd, they say, is just the tyrant's alibi. Revolution turns to stone when power claims the crown alone. The weapon drawn to turn the dusk into the dawn. A Buddha, bludgeon and a lie to keep the rebel spirit dry. So rise before the silence grows, before the iron curtain shows. Dictators fall, but not by chance. It starts when people learn to dance.
Then we come on to poem 7. First they came, no one left. Written, of course, by Martin Niemöller. This poem draws a course on the haunting prose written by Martin Niemöller in 1946. He was a German Lutheran pastor, and he reflected after World War II on his own silence during the rise of Nazism. It has many variations and versions, but I've tried to keep with the original message that when we fail to speak out against injustice, we create the very conditions with which evil grows. Okay, this is poem 7. First they came.
First they came for the communists, and
Okay, let's go on to the poem 8. The Two Doors by Paul Driscoll. Before we begin, here's a short explanation. The allegory of the long spoons appears in many religious and cultural traditions. It teaches the difference between a hellish world and a heavenly one isn't the place, isn't the environment, it's how we treat one another. Cooperation or selfishness, two doors, two futures. We make our own heaven and hell, and that's why it resonates so much with me. Two Doors, I feel, stands apart from other pieces in this by grounding itself almost entirely on the single ancient retold allegory in verse. The poem retells one of the oldest moral parables shared across many cultures and religions. The allegory, often known today as the Long Spoons, is a tale that appeared for centuries in Jewish folklore and later travelled through Christian, Buddhist and Hindu traditions. In its simplest form, the story contrasts two identical rooms, heaven and hell, where suffering or joy is determined not by circumstance, but how we treat one another. My version of the poem, for what it's worth, follows the structure of the classic telling as closely as I could make it within the poem. The identical doors, the shared table, the fragrant food, the revelation that the difference between torment and paradise lies in our cooperation rather than self and greed. What I think makes this piece feel new is I've tried to do it where it's not the moral itself, but deliver it in a fresh and an entertaining way. I've shaped it into a rhythmic poem-like narrative with repetition, refrains, and deliberate emotional build. I repeat these lines not for instruction, but emphasis, reinforcing how easily the truth can be missed until it's finally named out. Rather than presenting the parable as doctrine, the poem, I've tried to treat it as an invitation, a quiet reminder that love is not feeling or belief, but a learned skill practiced through sharing. By transforming this piece of folk wisdom into a poem, Two Doors, I feel, connects ancient moral memory to contemporary voice, proving that some stories endure precisely because they keep finding a new way to be told. Poem 8, Two Doors by Paul Driscoll.
One day a man said to God, "Oh God, I would like to know what heaven and hell are like. What heaven and hell are like." God showed the man two doors. Inside the first one, in the middle of the room was a large round table with a large pot of vegetable stew. It smelled delicious and made the man's mouth water, but the people sitting around the table were thin and sickly. They appeared to be famished. They were holding spoons with very long handles, and each found it possible to reach into the pot of stew and take a spoonful. But because the handle was longer than their arms, they could not get the spoons back into their mouths. The man shuddered at the sight of their misery and suffering. God said, "You have seen hell. You 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 have seen hell." Behind the second door, the room appeared exactly the same. There was the large round table with a large pot of wonderful vegetable stew that made the man's mouth water. The people had the same long-handled spoons, but they were well nourished and plump requires one skill these people learned early on, to share and feed one another, while the greedy only think of themselves, only think of themselves. You have seen hell, 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 you have seen
And that brings me on to Act 4, The Hope. This is poems 9 and 10. But when tyranny has arrived, there is still hope. This section tries to call out that in history, ultimately love and freedom prevails. The good of people always triumph its evil tendencies. It's easy to forget when we see such self-interested, narcissistic leaders and billionaire rich that such evils can and will be overcome. We must never forget that. So this goes into poem 9, They Always Fall by Paul Driscoll. And before we begin, here's an explanation. Yet there's always hope. History shows that tyranny ultimately collapses under the weight of ordinary people's courage, solidarity, and the refusal to bow. This is a reminder to hold fast to the good in the world and the power that we all share within ourselves. I've tried to make it a poem that's less built on quotations and more like a manifesto assembled from history's warning signs and wisdom. Where the tyrant is confronted, power in the present tense, this piece tries to step back and look at the long overarching arc. I have, of course, quoted there's repeated pattern of domination, collapse and renewal that runs through human history. My central refrain, of course, echoes a sentiment most famously associated by Mahatma Gandhi, where tyrants and murderers may seem invincible for a time, but they never endure. The repetition is that I've tried to do isn't just rhetorical flourish, but so much I'm trying to get across an insistence, a reminder that inevitability is on the side of truth, not force. I've tried to then take the historical certainty that's sharpened with moral clarity. The poem draws on leaderships heavily by Octavia E. Butler, laying out the devastating calm, what it means to place power in the hands of cowards, fools, liars and tyrants. And around this spine, I've put other voices such as Charles Faulkner's observation that despots prefer obedience over dignity, modern warnings that education threatens authoritarian rule, and the stark reminder attributed to Lawrence Overmeyer that truth itself is tyranny's greatest enemy. Even the more visceral imagery I've tried to get across in the poem, like narcissism driving dictators forward and towards self-destruction. I tried to make that feed into the same argument, oppression carrying the seeds of its own collapse. What I feel makes this poem resonate, though, is where it ends. After all the history, all the warning, I've tried to make the poem refuse to go into despair. I've pivoted towards love, not as sentiment, but as resistance, suggesting that empathy, education, humour and shared humanity are not soft alternatives to power, but forces that outlast it. They Always Fall doesn't promise an easy victory. It promises endurance. It stands as both a warning and a reassurance that no matter how loud tyrants shout and how bleak it never gets the final word. Poem 9, They Always Fall, by Paul Driscoll.
Remember that all through history there have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they seem invincible,
but in the end they always fall. Always. Choose your leaders with wisdom and forethought. To be led by a coward is to be controlled by all that the coward fears. To be led by a fool is to be led by the opportunists who control the fool. To be led by a thief is to offer up your most precious treasures to be stolen. To be led by a liar is to ask, to be told lies. To be led by a tyrant is to sell yourself and those you love into slavery. Despots prefer the friendship of the dog, who unjustly mistreated and debased still loves and serves the man who wronged him. Tyrants view educated citizens as their greatest enemy. When thinkers rise, empires are challenged. When they fall silent, tyrants win. Humor and mockery can reveal tyrants, ideologues and fools. That is why some people hate them so much. Truth is the greatest enemy of tyrants everywhere. The gears of narcissism propel the dictator, and how tempting it is to shift them into overdrive. While drunk on power, the genocidal hangover comes later. I don't know what's wrong with this world, but I do know what's right with it, love. I have studied enough history to see that no matter how cruel the behavior of tyrants, and no matter how dark the moments have been, love has always prevailed. Always. They always fall. Always. Truth is the greatest enemy of tyrants. Education is rebellion. Mockery is resistance. Love is the answer. Always.
And this brings me on to the passage or poem of Voices for Change. This is, of course, by Charlie Chaplin and was done in The Great Dictator final speech. It was one of the only film, I think, where Charlie Chaplin actually spoke. The closing monologue of Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator 1940 remains one of the cinema's most stirring calls to humanity. Delivered by Chaplin as a humble Jewish barber mistaken for a tyrant, of course, very much aping Hitler of the war that was happening at the time. This speech took him 2 years to write, and it still stands as one of the most eloquent denunciations of fascism ever filmed or written. Its plea for kindness, liberty and unity still resonates today, and it's why I adore this so much, and I had to include it in my collected poetic journey. Okay, and then we have passage 10, of course, done by Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there is room for everyone. And the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in machinery that gives abundance, has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now my voice is reaching millions throughout the world. Millions of despairing men, women and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man. Not one man nor a group of men, but in all men. In you, the people have the power. The power to of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie, they do not fulfill that promise, they never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead all men to happiness. Soldiers in the name of democracy, let us all unite.
And that brings me to the final act, Act 5, The Fix, poems 11 and 12. The final act looks at the overarching sickness of our current Western society, its causes and potential ways we can fix things in society and our mental self to make us healthier and fairer as a place to thrive and grow, being fairer to all. That brings us to poem 11, Where the Lights Went, by Paul Driscoll. Description before. Western society faces a deepening mental health crisis, but what lies beneath it? Why is it growing? Johann Hari's Lost Connection explores 9 root causes of depression in Western society and how we might begin to heal them. I've tried to make the poem distill the essence of that work, capturing its insights into connection, meaning and recovery. As someone who personally has struggled with depression for much of my life, I find this resonates with me an awful lot. And I found his teachings and writings of Johann Hari being particularly a good encapsulation of what I think happens and why mental health illness is growing in Western society. And more importantly, how and what can we do to help stop that from growing and reduce and help the people suffering. Okay, poem 11, Lost Connections, by Paul Driscoll.
Disconnection from meaningful work. I rise each day to tasks that numb my hands move, but my heart stays still, the purpose lost, the joy undone. Give me work that builds the soul, not just a wage, but something whole. Disconnection from other people, I scroll through faces, none connect. The silence echoes louder now than any word I recollect. Bring me back to voices near, to touch, to truth, to someone here. Disconnection from meaningful values, I chase the glitter, lost the gold. The things I thought would make me whole were empty trophies bought and sold. Let me live for what is right, not just what shines beneath the light. Disconnection from childhood trauma, buried deep but never gone. The child I was still cries at night, still wonders what went wrong. Let me face what I have feared and hold the boy who disappeared. Disconnection from status and respect, I speak, but no one hears me now. Invisible in crowded rooms, a shadow fading in the crowd. Lift me not with fame or pride, but with the dignity denied. Disconnection from the natural world, no stars above, no trees in sight. I breathe recycled air and light and It's in my code, a legacy I bear alone. But even if it's written deep, my story's still my own. Genes may shape the way I bend, but they don't dictate how I am. Brain changes, my mind's a maze, a fog I cannot flee. But neurons shift like rivers do, and healing flows in me. This brain can learn, this mind can grow, and find the light beneath the wall. 9 ways we break, 9 ways we mend, 9 truths we face, 9 paths to bend. From work to soul, from genes to sky, we rise again, we learn to try. Let connection be the cure. Let compassion make us sure. Let the healing start today and guide us through the
And that brings me on to the final track, The Fix by Paul Driscoll. We know something is profoundly wrong. The Western world feels increasingly fractured and divisive, and political leaders often seem bereft of imagination of what they can do to make society better and stop this sickness in its tracks. So this poem asks that essential question. I've tried to ask, what would it take to build a society that genuinely serves human flourishing and fairness? What would that look like? How would we go about doing it? And through doing that, I've called out what I consider are the 6 main causes of the society collapse in the first part, and then how on each of them, what things can we do to improve that and stop that particular sickness of those 6 causes. And that brings us on to poem 12, The Fix, by Paul Driscoll.
We are living in the echo of progress, but the signal is breaking. 6 fractures, 6 truths, 6 chances to rebuild. The streets are quiet, but not peaceful. Mobility without roots, work without connection. We lost the local, we lost the face, we lost the rhythm of shared space. Invest in community centers, libraries, parks, incentivize civic participation, empower local councils. Let workplaces become bridges, let digital meet the physical. Let us gather again, let us belong again. The world got smaller, but the gap got wider. Jobs vanished into offshore winds. Standards sank beneath profit tides. Fair trade, global labor standards, a global minimum tax. Support domestic industries. Retrain the displaced, expose the supply chain. Let us compete with conscience. Let us trade with truth. The feet is fast, but the mind is fractured. Algorithms whisper what we want to hear until we forget how to listen. Regulate the algorithm, teach media literacy. Reward truth over clicks, let users control the feed. Decentralize the digital stage. Let us reclaim the signal. Let us reconnect the soul. Machines are rising, but the people are falling. Productivity climbs, but the ladder is pulled away. Pilot universal basic income, retrain for tomorrow. Share the profits, protect the gig worker. Create new industries. Let us code with compassion. Let us automate with equity. We live longer, but we carry more. Retirement stretches, wealth stagnates, generations drift apart. Reform pensions, invest in prevention, offer flexible retirement, encourage wealth transfer. innovate social care. Let us age with dignity. Let us care with courage. The walls are rising, but the doors are locked. Homes become assets, rent becomes prison. Build affordable housing, reform zoning laws, protect tenants. Tax speculation, support co-ops and land trusts. Let us shelter the future, let us open the door. Each fracture touches the next. Community heals automation. Digital trust rebuilds democracy. Housing stabilizes health. The answers are not separate, they are symphonic. Cross-sector collaboration, local action, global vision, tailored policies, shared purpose. Let us connect the dots. Let us harmonize the fix.
Change will not roar. It will ripple. It will rise in small waves, in local voices, in shared resolve.
Change will be incremental, systematic, coordinated, resilient. What resonates with you? Where do we begin?
Let us begin. Let us begin. Let us
And that's the entire journey. This work does not claim to have the answers, but rather my personal journey in seeking those answers. It's not meant as a manifesto, nor sermon, nor prophecy. It's simply a witness, a gathering of words spoken aloud because silence has never saved anyone, and because meaning deserves to stand on its own without disguise. These poems trace a journey through fracture and fear, through wisdom borrowed and lessons relearned, through tyranny's rise and its inevitable fall. But above all, they trace the belief in people, in ordinary courage, in the quiet acts of kindness, curiosity, resistance and care that the world and history rarely headlines, yet always depends upon. If there's one thing to take from this journey, it is this. We are not powerless. Democracies falter not only through force, but through forgetting who we are and what we owe one another. And they are rebuilt the same way, not by saviors, but by communities, by empathy, by truth spoken plainly, by choosing cooperation over cruelty, love over fear, and responsibility over apathy. So let these words sit with you. Argue with them if you must. Carry them, challenge them, or leave them behind. But do not leave unchanged. Because even when democracies fall, people do rise, and they always have.